They say that at midnight, whispers echo through the dusty curtains of the abandoned Velmont Theatre, closed ever since its leading actor vanished during rehearsal. Now, lights flicker without power, and shadows move where no one stands. When the Mystery Incorporated gang arrives, they discover a forgotten script, and the only way to lift the curse may be to bring the play back to life. But who, or what, is waiting behind the curtain? It was a rainy evening when Mystery Incorporated received the letter. Handwritten in elegant cursive, the envelope was sealed with red wax, bearing the emblem of a theatrical mask, half comedy, half tragedy. Inside were 5 tickets, all dated for one final performance, at the Velmont Theatre, a building long abandoned on the outskirts of town. No sender. No return address. Just a note that read, "Come see the final act, if you dare." Velma adjusted her glasses, curiosity already sparked. The Velmont? Wasn't that shut down after a tragedy decades ago? Tragedy. That's our cue, Fred said with a grin, already steering the mystery machine toward the theater. Scooby and Shaggy, less enthusiastic, huddled in the back seat. Like, I'd rather watch reruns of soap operas than visit a haunted stage. Shaggy muttered, hugging Scooby. Alright, Scoob. Our rerun's good, Scooby whimpered. The Velmont Theatre loomed like a forgotten relic, shrouded in ivy and fog. Its tall, Gothic frame towered over the street, its marquee cracked and rusted, with faded letters barely spelling, "The curtain never falls alone." Inside, time had stood still. Dust coated every surface, and cobwebs draped from the red velvet curtains like ghostly veils. Yet something felt, staged. As if the theater had been expecting them. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the aisles, though every window was shut. The stage lights flickered to life, casting eerie shadows across the rows of empty seats. "Guys," Daphne whispered. "Someone, or something, knows we're here." Velma examined a bulletin board backstage, where old newspaper clippings were pinned with yellowed tape. "Look at this. Alaric Valari. Star actor. Vanished during rehearsal in 1972. The play was never performed." Fred leaned in. "It says they were rehearsing a play called The Final Curtain. It was supposed to be Alaric's masterpiece. And then he just disappeared?" Daphne asked. "No trace. The director claimed he walked off stage and was never seen again." Velma's brow furrowed. This whole place is frozen in that moment. As they moved deeper into the backstage corridors, the sound of footsteps echoed behind them, then stopped whenever they did. Scooby yelped as a mirror shattered nearby, though no one had touched it. Like, okay, that's it. Shaggy exclaimed. Let's just leave the ghost to his creepy spotlight and grab some snacks. Before anyone could reply, the stage lights flickered violently, and a voice, deep, dramatic, and filled with sorrow, boomed through the sound system. The curtain rises, whether the actors are ready or not. Everyone froze. Who said that? Daphne asked. No one's at the sound booth, Fred replied, scanning the balcony. Velma picked up an old, cracked script from the floor. Its pages were marked with red ink and handwritten notes. The title, The Final Curtain. Her eyes widened. This is it. The missing script. But, it's incomplete. Entire scenes are missing, and some lines are crossed out like someone was rewriting it in real time. At that moment, a blood-curdling laugh echoed through the building, bouncing off the walls in every direction. Shaggy and Scooby screamed in unison and bolted behind a curtain, only to knock over a tower of dusty props. Zoinks! That laugh came from backstage. Shaggy gasped, his face pale. Fred grabbed a flashlight. Let's check it out, carefully. The gang moved together, their footsteps soft on the creaking wooden floor. Behind the curtain, a trapdoor stood open. A draft of cold air poured from below. Velma looked at the others. That leads to the theater's sublevel. Costume storage, maybe old sets. It hasn't been used in decades. Or maybe it's where the ghost keeps his fan club, Shaggy mumbled. They descended the narrow staircase, the dim flashlight beams dancing on the stone walls. At the bottom, rows of mannequins in tattered costumes lined the room like silent spectators. Dust swirled in the air. And then, without warning, one of the mannequins turned its head. The mannequin's head moved with a slow, grinding creak. Everyone stood frozen. Scooby hid behind Shaggy, trembling. Tell me that was a trick of the light, Shaggy whimpered. Velma stepped forward, squinting through the dim beam of her flashlight. It's on a swivel. But who, or what, triggered it? Fred examined the base. There's no power. It wasn't mechanical. Suddenly, the faint sound of clapping echoed from above. Slow. Rhythmic. Like a crowd acknowledging a performance that never happened. The gang scrambled back up the stairs and onto the stage. The house lights flickered. One by one, rows of bulbs lit up in the audience section, revealing empty seats, except for one. In the third row sat a lone figure. Still. Pale. Dressed in 1940s formal wear, with a white mask covering its face. Fred blinked. Did someone come in behind us? Daphne shined her flashlight toward the figure, but in that instant, it vanished. The seat where it sat rocked gently, as if someone had just stood up. Velma caught her breath. This theater is repeating something. Like a loop. A memory stuck in time. They regrouped in the backstage dressing room. Mirrors were cracked, makeup kits spilled, but the vanity lights glowed faintly. On one of the counters, Daphne found an old photograph, the original cast of the final curtain. In the middle stood Alaric Valari, smiling in full costume. To his right, a man with a dark, intense gaze and a name tag on his lapel, C. Morthane, playwright. Velma stared at the photo. That's our mystery playwright. There are no records of him anywhere, not in archives, not online, nothing. It's like he never existed. Fred added, and yet, he wrote a play that's been haunting this place for 50 years. Daphne flipped the photo over. Scribbled in red ink, the audience never forgets. Neither do the actors. Suddenly, a door slammed shut. The sound echoed through the dressing rooms like a gunshot. Scooby and Shaggy screamed. Are our run snacks? Scooby asked hopefully. No time for snacks, Scoob. Shaggy replied. We gotta live first, snack later. They followed the sound to the orchestra pit, where an old tape recorder sat on a chair, already playing. A ghostly recording of a rehearsal filled the theater, actors reciting lines, nervous laughter, and then, louder than all, Alaric's voice, cut short by a scream. The tape hissed. Then rewound itself. Fred picked it up. Someone left this here on purpose. Velma opened the cover and found a note folded inside the cassette slot. The paper was brittle, the ink smudged, but still legible. To lift the final curtain, the act must end where it began. Back in the auditorium, Daphne paced between the seats. I think we're supposed to finish the play. Or maybe, uncover what happened during that last rehearsal. Velma nodded. We need the full script. But it's incomplete. And some parts are missing entirely. I need to find the original version. As they spread out to search, Shaggy and Scooby crept toward the balcony, drawn by the sound of soft humming. I know we shouldn't be investigating creepy lullabies, but we're already up here, right? Shaggy whispered. The balcony was covered in dust, the seats untouched. Yet, in the front row, sat a tattered playbill. Scooby sniffed it and sneezed, sending it fluttering open. It was dated 1972. The premiere that never happened. Shaggy picked it up. Look, Scoob, it lists Alaric as the lead, but the playwright's name is scratched out. Ruro, they turned as a curtain behind them shifted. A tall figure emerged, cloaked in black, its face hidden by a porcelain mask. Encore, it whispered, voice echoing unnaturally. Shaggy and Scooby bolted, tumbling down the balcony stairs in a frenzy. The gang reunited on stage as the masked figure appeared briefly behind the curtain. And vanished again. Fred chased after it, but there was no one behind the stage. Only the red curtains, now stained with what looked like dried blood. Velma sat in one of the audience chairs, trying to piece together clues. What if this isn't just a ghost story? What if this is a performance, one that keeps trying to finish itself? Fred returned, shaken. Whatever that thing is, it knew we were here. It's waiting for us to keep going. Scooby moaned, hiding behind Shaggy. Are no more curtains. Velma stood, holding the cracked script. Then we give it what it wants. We finish the play. But on our terms. As the lights dimmed on their own and the curtain slowly began to rise, a strange glow bathed the stage. The second act had just begun. The stage lights flickered as the velvet curtain rose on its own, casting eerie glows onto the old wooden boards. The gang stood at center stage, surrounded by silence, until a piano somewhere in the orchestra pit began playing itself. A haunting melody, slow and broken, like a memory struggling to stay alive. Velma clutched the torn script. This place is more than haunted. It's alive, with unfinished art, with grief, with obsession. Fred nodded, eyes scanning the dark wings of the stage. And someone, or something, is pushing us to finish a performance that was never meant to end. Daphne examined the floor beneath the footlights. There's chalk here. Blocking marks. And stage directions, just like a rehearsal. Suddenly, a hidden panel in the stage creaked open. A cold breeze emerged, and inside, a narrow tunnel led downward. Velma's eyes lit up. Storage. Maybe even the original archives. Like, why is it always tunnels? Shaggy moaned, but followed with Scooby clinging tightly. The tunnel was lined with posters of past performances, some torn, some burnt, all covered in soot and dust. At the far end was a heavy metal door. Velma pushed it open. They entered a forgotten room, a director's vault. Shelves full of scripts, notes, costumes, and lighting designs. But on the center table sat a single item untouched by time. The original script of the final curtain, bound in black leather, with Alaric Valari's name embossed in gold. Velma opened it with trembling fingers. The original lines are all here. And, added scenes, she whispered. But they're written in a different hand. Darker. Obsessive. These weren't revisions. They were curses. Fred frowned. Curses. The new scenes describe the characters losing their identities, becoming the roles they play. It's not just a ghost story. It's a trap. Daphne flipped through the final pages. It ends with the lead actor vanishing behind a mirror, never to return, unless the truth is spoken aloud. Shaggy gasped. Like, that sounds exactly what happened to Alaric. At that moment, Scooby pawed at a cabinet door. Inside was a dusty reel of film labeled Opening Night. Velma grabbed an old projector from a corner and played the film against a stained canvas on the wall. The footage was grainy but clear enough. It showed Alaric performing on stage, his final rehearsal. He looked exhausted, distant. As he spoke his final monologue, the lights behind him glowed too bright, then flickered out. The camera shook. A scream. The lens fell sideways, capturing only shadows. And then, Alaric's silhouette vanished. The film burned out, the projector sparking. That's it, Velma whispered. He disappeared during that line. That exact scene. We need to reenact it to find out what happened. Back upstairs, the gang prepared the stage. Fred and Daphne positioned lights, Velma coordinated blocking, and Shaggy, grudgingly, took the role of Alaric. Scooby would play the ghostly butler. "Like, this better earn me a standing ovation, and a lifetime supply of sandwiches," Shaggy muttered, adjusting the cape. The play began. Scene after scene unfolded, the atmosphere thick with tension. As each line was delivered, the theater responded, lights rising and dimming, echoes filling the silence. And then came the final scene. Shaggy, standing alone at center stage, spoke Alaric's final words, "The curtain falls for those who lie. But truth shall pull me back from the shadows." At that moment, the large mirror upstage began to ripple. The reflection shimmered unnaturally, and inside it, a figure moved. The gang gasped. "Is that Alaric?" Daphne whispered. But the figure didn't look right. His eyes glowed red. His mouth curled in rage. Velma stared at the script. "This isn't Alaric. It's the playwright. See, more thing." Suddenly, the masked phantom burst through the trapdoor beneath the stage. Cloak billowing, voice booming, no one rewrites the final act. Scooby screamed. Run. The stage lights exploded, plunging the theater into near darkness. The masked figure raised an arm, and the mirror shattered, releasing a vortex of smoke and howling voices. Fred pulled the gang toward the wings. "Back to the dressing room, go." But Velma stayed. "Wait. We have to finish the truth. The play can't trap us if we finish it honestly." She stepped forward and shouted, "The writer died with envy. He cursed the stage to claim what he couldn't become. But his story ends here, with the truth told." The phantom froze. The smoke trembled. And then, the mask cracked down the middle, revealing hollow eyes behind it, no soul. No actor. Just a presence made of grief. With one final roar, the phantom dissolved into dust. The vortex closed. The theater fell silent. A warm light filled the stage. From the shadows stepped a calm, glowing figure, Alaric. His expression was peaceful. He looked to Velma and whispered, "Thank you." And then, faded away. The dust had barely settled on the shattered mirror. Silence returned to the theater like a held breath, heavy and watchful. The gang remained on stage, shaken but steady. The phantom was gone. Alaric's soul, freed. And yet, something wasn't right. Velma stared at the floorboards beneath her feet. Did anyone else feel that shift in the air? Fred scanned the stage. "Like we've crossed some kind of boundary." Daphne pointed toward the audience. "Guys, look." The seats were no longer empty. Rows upon rows were now filled with translucent figures, ghostly silhouettes of theatergoers, sitting in total stillness. Some clapped slowly. Others stared blankly at the stage, mouths moving silently as if reciting forgotten lines. Shaggy backed away. Did we just step into the Twilight Zone?" Scooby clung to him, eyes wide. "Our haunted encore," Velma whispered, "we're not in the present anymore. This is a memory. A loop. A performance caught outside of time." Daphne turned. "Then how do we get out?" A voice echoed from the catwalk above. "You finish what began in blood." The gang spun around. Standing in the spotlight high above was a young actor in an old-fashioned costume, his face pale, hands trembling. Fred called out, "Who are you?" But the actor didn't answer. He simply gestured to the script in Velma's hands and then vanished into mist. Velma opened the book. The pages were no longer torn. The script was whole again, but the ink was glowing faintly red. A new title page had appeared, "The Final Curtain, Eternal Draft." She ran her fingers across the words. "It's rewriting itself." Just then, a massive thud shook the building. Stage lights swung wildly. The ghostly audience turned in unison, heads snapping toward the left wing. From behind the curtains emerged a woman in full stage attire, Victorian dress, powdered face, sunken eyes. She moved slowly, one hand clutching a faded rose. Daphne whispered, "She's one of the original cast members." Velma recognized her instantly. Juliette Moreau. Alaric's co-star. She disappeared 2 days after him. Juliet's voice rang out, ethereal and mournful. He broke the final vow. Left me in the second act. So I waited, for eternity's applause. The lights dimmed again. Suddenly, the gang was no longer on stage, but backstage. The dressing rooms had returned, pristine and lit as if opening night was moments away. Costumes were laid out. Makeup was fresh. A warm hum of voices filled the air. Actors preparing for their roles. Shaggy blinked. Okay, now we're in the past. Velma looked around. It's more than the past. It's a preserved moment. A time echo. They wandered through the backstage maze. Actors passed by without seeing them, whispers of lives long gone. Juliet walked among them, touching each prop and fixture with longing. Fred turned to Velma. Why are we seeing this? Because this was the moment the curse took root, she replied. Alaric didn't vanish from the stage. He vanished before, back here. A sudden scream pierced the air. The dressing room mirror cracked on its own. Alaric's reflection appeared, eyes filled with terror, then dissolved. The gang rushed to the mirror. Velma examined its edges. There's a hidden compartment behind it. Fred pried the mirror away, revealing a small vault. Inside, a second, blood-stained script. Its pages were filled with twisted versions of scenes, each one darker than the last. Daphne read aloud. To live forever, one must never bow. To control the story, the writer must become the stage. Velma's eyes widened. This wasn't Alaric's curse. It was the playwright's. See, Morthane bound the souls of his cast into the play, and himself into the theater. Scooby whimpered. Are no more cursed plays, Fred added, so that's what we're in. Not just a haunted house, but a prison. Made of narrative. Suddenly, Juliet appeared behind them, face twisted with sorrow. He promised I'd be remembered. But I was rewritten, erased. Velma stepped forward. You can still be remembered. But we have to break the cycle. Juliet's eyes softened. She reached into the vault and placed a final page into Velma's hand. The real ending. Velma read it silently. It's not a death scene. It's a curtain call. A release. The ghostly applause returned. The gang raced back to the stage. Fred signaled the others to take their positions. Shaggy, reluctantly, stepped back into Alaric's role. Velma held up the final page. As the curtain falls, we shed our masks. Our names return. Our truths set free. They performed the ending, this time, not in fear but in defiance. Light filled the theater. The ghostly audience stood, clapping thunderously as their forms began to fade. Juliet stepped into the spotlight. Her expression was serene. Thank you, she whispered, before dissolving into golden light. The gang was left alone. And the curtain finally fell. The golden glow from Juliet's spirit dimmed, and the theater returned to its cold, shadowed state. Dust danced once more in the moonlight cutting through the broken skylight. The audience was gone. The ghostly cast had vanished. Only silence remained. But the feeling of danger lingered, thicker now. Watching. Waiting. Velma adjusted her glasses. We freed Juliet, but something's still wrong. The curse hasn't lifted. Daphne looked up at the rafters. Because the source isn't gone. It's still here. Still writing. Shaggy shivered. Like, maybe we just performed the warm-up act. The real horror's backstage. Scooby gulped. Our real horror. Velma opened the script again. Its pages were still glowing faintly, but now lines were shifting on their own, erasing, rewriting, rearranging. Fred frowned. It's alive. The script is fighting us. Then, on the final page, new words bled onto the paper like ink seeping through fabric. The playwright returns for his bow. A heavy sound echoed through the building, like a massive door closing somewhere far below. Then came footsteps. Measured. Slow. Approaching from beneath the stage. Fred motioned toward the trapdoor. Let's go. If this ends anywhere, it's down there. They descended carefully, deeper than before, past the storage tunnels, beyond the archives. Stone walls closed in. The air grew colder. At the end of the passage, a vast chamber opened, like a forgotten chapel. Candles floated midair. Ancient theater masks lined the walls, weeping red wax from their eyes. At the center stood a lone figure, robed in black. His face was obscured by a porcelain mask, half comedy, half tragedy. He turned. "Welcome to the original stage," he said, voice echoing unnaturally. "Where fiction becomes fate." Velma stepped forward, steady. "You're C. Morthane." He tilted his head. "I am what remains of him. The pen that outlived the hand." Daphne gripped Fred's arm. "He's not just a ghost. He's a living idea." Velma nodded. "You wrote the play to trap actors. To immortalize your work by feeding its souls." Morthane spread his arms. "Every playwright dreams of timelessness. I simply ensured it." Shaggy whimpered. "Like, that's the creepiest kind of ambition," Scooby added. "Are really bad reviews?" The chamber trembled. "You disrupted the final act," Morthane growled. "But the ending is mine. I decide who leaves the stage." Velma held up the restored script. "Not anymore. We found the missing pages. Juliet's ending. The truth." Morthane's laughter was cold. "Truth is fragile. It bends. It breaks. Just like your mind's will." He raised a hand, and shadows peeled away from the walls, forming twisted figures. Actors with no faces, no voices. Puppets of ink and memory. Fred stepped forward. "Guys, we hold them off." Velma finished the script. Daphne grabbed a metal rod. "Time to improvise." As the shadows lunged, chaos erupted. Fred and Daphne fought to hold them back while Velma flipped through the glowing pages. Shaggy and Scooby ran in circles, accidentally knocking down candelabras and dodging ghostly limbs. Velma reached the final page. The new ending was there, written in her own handwriting, though she didn't remember writing it. When the pen falls, the story ends. When truth speaks, the shadow bends. Say the name, tear the mask, and let the writer face his past. Velma stood. "Morthane. Your curtain call is over." She approached him, unwavering. "You don't know my name," he said. "You cannot end what you cannot define." Velma stepped closer, holding out the page. "But I do. Your full name was Cassian Morthane Arlen, former playwright of the Royal Blackwood Company. Fired for plagiarizing, disgraced for stealing the soul of the stage." The mask cracked. He staggered. "No. I erased that name." Velma tore the page in half. Light erupted. The chamber exploded with wind and flame. The shadows screamed. The floating candles burst one by one. Morthane clutched his mask as it split down the middle, revealing a hollow void behind it. Fred, Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby ran to Velma's side. Morthane collapsed to his knees. "My masterpiece, my eternity," Velma looked at him, calm and firm. Every story ends. And then he was gone. The masks melted. The chamber cracked open, revealing the ruins of the old orchestra pit above. The gang climbed back up to the main stage. Just in time to see the script in Velma's hands dissolve into golden dust. Fred looked around. The air's different. Like, it's lighter. Daphne nodded. The curse is broken. Shaggy collapsed in a theater seat. Like, can we just have a musical next time? Scooby laughed, still shaking. Our ragtime. Velma stood at center stage, staring at the now empty theater. All that's left, she said quietly, is the truth, and the silence. Sunlight. Not the eerie glow of phantom stage lights, not the flicker of cursed candles, but real, golden sunlight breaking through the cracked skylight of the old theater. It bathed the worn red seats in warmth for the first time in decades. The gang stood at the center of the now silent stage. Dust floated gently in the air, no longer oppressive but peaceful, like the remnants of a story finally allowed to rest. Fred exhaled. We did it. Daphne looked around. It feels like the whole place exhaled with us. Shaggy leaned against Scooby, exhausted but smiling. Like, no more haunted rehearsals, no more ghostly soliloquies. Just a quiet, empty stage. Are no more curtains rising by themselves, Scooby added. Velma knelt, running her hand across the floorboards. No vibrations. No whispers. Just wood, silence, and light. The curse is gone, she said. We ended the cycle. Freed the trapped souls. Closed Morthane's final script. Daphne walked toward the wings. So, what happens now? Before Velma could answer, the lights flickered once more, not ominously this time, but softly. One final spotlight lit the center of the stage. There, standing alone, was a young actor, the last remnant of the past. Alaric. Not the tortured ghost they'd seen before. This time, his expression was calm. He no longer wore his stage costume. Instead, he looked like a man finally at peace. He bowed once, deeply. Then he whispered, "Thank you." And vanished, as though stepping through a door into the light. The spotlight blinked out. For a moment, none of them moved. Then Fred turned to the others. Let's go home. They walked together through the main aisle. Outside, the day had broken fully. The theater stood still behind them, no longer menacing, just old. An empty building with a history, and a future. Later, at a local cafe, the gang gathered around a booth, sharing hot drinks and recounting everything that had happened. I still can't believe how many layers that place had, Daphne said. It was like a puzzle that kept rewriting itself. Velma nodded. It wasn't just haunted, it was alive. The narrative was feeding off fear and tragedy. When we confronted the truth and gave the story a proper ending, we broke its grip. Fred sipped his coffee. And Morthane? Gone, Velma said. Or maybe just a memory now. The mask cracked. The name remembered. That's what freed him. Shaggy poked at his muffin. You think the place will stay quiet? Velma looked out the window. I think, the theater's finally ready to rest. Scooby raised his cup. Araros to happy endings. They all laughed, soft, relieved, real. But that night, as Velma packed away the old photographs and notes from the case, she paused at one final item tucked between the pages of her journal. It was the final page of the cursed script, the one that had dissolved in her hands. But somehow, it had returned. Blank. No words. No title. Just a faint outline of a stage in gold ink. She smiled faintly. Some stories, she whispered, always leave room for an encore. She closed the journal. And somewhere far away, in the hollow bones of an old stage, a single curtain swayed gently in the stillness, then fell.